Hello. Okay, today we're going to keep the conversation going about friction, but we're going to take this to a very personal level. Because in fact, I was recording a podcast this morning talking about how understanding each other's differences is actually a really powerful force for innovation, driving innovation. And on Monday, we talked about how friction is actually a positive force for innovation, how it can actually cause more innovation and why, how all that diversity of thinking comes together. And the example I was giving this morning as I was recording this podcast, which I think comes out next week, by the way, is I was talking about I think it's a little bit like building a house. You don't build a house with all wood, right? You need the wood, you need the metal, you need the decoration, you need the electric, you need the plumbing, you need the plaster. You can tell I'm not in construction, but you get the point, right? You need all of that. And I think that tapping the power of diversity of thinking and understanding the differences and leveraging the friction is a little bit like that, right? You need the person that thinks like the wood. You need the person that thinks like the metal. You need the person that thinks like the decorating. You need the person that thinks like the landscaping, and so on. But the challenge that we often run into is that because we don't necessarily understand the differences, that stuff causes friction. And when it causes, let me say it differently, that causes friction that bogs us down versus turning that friction into a powerful force for good, right? So turning it into our competitive advantage. So what I want to show you today is this, I think some of our clients' favorite one-page chart that we made that shows how all the different innovator styles actually add value, but also cause friction. And I want to share some personal stories of clients, of everyday innovators like you and me who use that to get incredible results and to really elevate not just the respect, but the collaboration on the innovation on their team, because they turned that friction into their competitive advantage. So I want to share a story of the team that I worked with that did that. Then I want to show you this document so that you can do that as well. And I want to share some personal examples to help you really bring it to life. So I was working with this team. They're the internal auditors at a big technology reseller company. So basically, they're responsible for operational excellence inside the organization. So not the sexy R&D team, not the marketing team, not the customer-facing sales team, right? These are like the guys in the basement, wicked, smart group of people responsible for the operations, right? For the company running smoothly, for improving performance. So Morty, the leader, and I talk about this in depth in my book, he brings together his team of 25, some are meeting for the first time, and he brings them together for two reasons. One is he really wants to build a cohesive, collaborative team. He's got people from across the globe coming from worlds of different perspectives and experience and ideas and strengths and work history and everyday innovator styles coming together. So he wants to build a cohesive team. He also wants to make sure that he gives his teams the tools and the resources they need to deal with the challenges ahead. He knows that the workplace is changing, the employee is changing, the company's demands are changing. So he knows that how they did things yesterday is not how they're doing it tomorrow, and he needs to give them the tools. So he brings the team together. Everybody on the team took our proprietary assessment, the IQE, which tells you your unique style of innovation, and they've all got their reports. And what was fascinating is when we were having this discussion, it was like this eye-opening moment where they realized, wow, we have all these different types of innovators in the room. In fact, we did this very cool kind of live heat map where they stood on what would be a heat map in the room based on who they were and where they were. And you could see them, they were spattered all across the room. And you could really visibly see how different they were. And then we got into this discussion of how you add value, how you cause friction. And here's why I share this part. It was so fascinating. The team realized, wow, so Tamara, the fact that you're a risk taker and experiential really means that like that leaping that I find impulsive and frustrating and I want you to slow down, that's actually how you're innovating. The fact that you need to bring ideas to life and actually digging them that way, that's actually you innovating, right? So there became a level of respect for the differences because how we add value is also how we cause friction. Let me show you this chart because I think that really brings it to life, and then we can kind of dig in from there. And I think you'll see maybe a little bit how you sometimes might be adding value or causing friction. So this is the 9 triggers of innovation, right? The 9 styles of innovation. Let me slideshow. Okay. You may or may not know how you innovate, what your everyday innovator style is, and that's totally okay. You can think about what resonates with you. What matters here is just pay attention to the friction side because that's what we're going to focus on for a minute. And I'm not, in the essence of time, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I do want to pull out some of ones that I've heard time and time again in stories because I think it's so important to understand how we can turn that friction into our competitive advantage like Morty did with his team. Because what we did in that meeting together is in recognizing how we innovate differently, we got this level of respect for each other, and those differences became his team's competitive advantage. You turn that team from considered kind of a like offshoot status quo team to being one of the highest performing in the company and being really recognized for the innovation and the strengths they brought to the entire company. They did this because they became this incredible diverse set of people that came together. So you can probably read all this, but I just want to highlight a few and give you some examples, right? So collaborative, for example, people who have a collaborative style of innovation, you have 2 power triggers, by the way, 2 ways that are your wellspring of innovation. They are your natural innovation strengths. So collaborative is one of them. The friction that you cause is sometimes feels like you just keep talking to too many people, or you're viewed as slowing down the process because you need to get so much input. So here's the thing, right? You as a collaborative, you innovate by pulling disparate people and ideas and experiences together. But if I'm on the other side of that and I'm a risk taker and my idea of innovating is leaping and I don't understand that about you, I don't see it as you innovating, I see it as friction. So Laura, who's my right hand, who's phenomenal, who's on my team. Hey Laura, if you're listening. She's a collaborative tweaker actually. So she's constantly doing that, right? She's constantly, every time I'm like, idea, leap, build the plane as we go. She's like, well, let me figure this out. Let me watch this video that this person did on it. Let me go over here and check this out. And I'm like, can't we just get to it? But now I realize, oh my gosh, that's her innovating. She's pulling disparate things together to create whole innovation. So now I leverage us together, my pushing boundaries and my needing to like get things out in the real world. I combine that with her desire and her innovation of pulling all these disparate things together, and the tweaker side of her, which is all about optimizing what I've already done, right? And that becomes our incredible teamwork. Like we're a powerhouse because of that. So like, for example, people who are, I'm going to go down the list to my favorite one, inquisitive. Here's why. Yeah, Sarah, you can absolutely have this. So here's the thing. I'll put it in the membership for you. Here's the thing with inquisitives, right? So inquisitives are those people who ask a lot of questions. And wow, do you have people in your office that you're like, you are so annoying. Stop asking questions. Can we just get to action? Here's the thing. Inquisitives innovate in the questions, not the answers. Because of that, they're brilliant at challenging assumptions that are holding us back. They're brilliant at digging deep to finding root causes. They're brilliant at pushing us out of that assumption box that we get into. But we have to understand those questions are them digging. That friction that they cause is them innovating. Imagine how powerful it is when you understand that that person across the table from you is an inquisitive. And they're asking you those 3 more questions when all you want to do is go to lunch because they're trying to dig to find the innovation. Inquisitive find very deep innovation. And it's because they dig. Well, how come? Well, why not? Well, what if? Any of you have those people on your team? Right? So, but if I look at a team, what I often find is when I'm having one-on-one conversations with them is they'll say, well, Jess is really frustrating because she's always talking about long-term and her ideas aren't grounded in reality. Well, she's probably a futuristic. And when you understand that Jess's kind of ability to see the impact of things 10 down the road or see where today's problems become tomorrow's opportunity is actually a powerful force for innovation, you learn to leverage that. Let me know if this is resonating. I want to hear how you're going to think about this. And I'm not saying that we don't have annoying colleagues and coworkers. Of course we do. But what I am saying very strongly is that oftentimes the things that we see that cause friction are actually incredible strengths for innovation if we know how to leverage that and if we understand that about the person on the other side of the table. Tweakers, for example, I referenced Laura, right? So people who are tweakers, the way they innovate by modifying, making better. They know that a great innovation is just one little tweak away. Where they cause friction is they don't stop modifying, right? Things are never complete with them because they're always improving, editing, evolving. So that can cause friction because if all I see is they won't stop modifying, I lose the ability to tap the power of the fact that that's the person you want to go to when your initiative has stalled and you can't get it further. Laura, who's on my team, part of the reason we work so well together is I start, right? Because I'm that risk taker experiential. I'm all about the leap and doing in motion. And then she takes it to the finish line, not me, right? She optimizes, she adjusts, she edits it. But I had to understand that about her and not see it as a friction, but see it as something to really leverage. Imaginatives, for example, there are people who they fill in the blank spaces for people. They add fresh perspectives to solve thinking. They're all about playing in the gaps, but they can cause friction because they can be considered dreamers or lacking proof in their ideas. They can be viewed as unrealistic because they're like off in la la land. But wow, how powerful is it if if you're stuck in something that like it's just not big enough, it's not bold enough, it's not inventive enough, it's just you're like trapped and incremental. If you know that, Corey on your team, who's a imaginative, that dreamer quality of his can help you expand your thinking. How powerful could that be? Oh, yeah, Donna just said, it helps me understand what pushes my buttons and what lights. I'm going to stop sharing for a minute. It helps me understand what pushes my buttons and lights my fire, right? Exactly. So here's the thing. I like that you said Donna lights my fire too, because here's the thing, right? So here's for me, in all transparency, I'm kind of an open book. So because I'm a risk taker and an experiential, so I lead and I innovate in action and I get uncomfortable. Like I'm really good in that uncomfortable space where other people get stuck. And again, let me just be clear. All those styles of innovation are important and equally valuable. So I'm only sharing my experience because that's mine, but it's not because one is better than the other. Without Laura and her collaborative tweaker, without Corey and his imaginative inquisitive, I would not be successful, right? So it takes all innovation. That's why that friction and understanding that why that's causing friction and how to flip it to a strength and a competitive advantage is so important. So I say out loud with Donna to your lights by fire, you'll know when you put me in the room with other risk takers because I'm like, this is so exciting. We're all going to be, we're all going to leap and we're all going to be bold and we're going to be uncomfortable together. And we are. But you know what? The solutions and the ideas that we come up with, the innovation that we create is not as good as if we have some of that, all of that diversity of thinking in the room and the friction that goes along with it. That's the part I really want to dig in. It's the friction that goes along with that diversity of thinking that makes our innovation stronger. It's the difference in perspective. It's the pushback. It's the question. It's the thinking 10 steps ahead. It's the fluidity and the ambiguity of it. Like it's all of that, right? That actually makes it better. So I think I referenced before this M&M exercise I've done with teams. Right, on one hand, when you put teams together where people are like power triggers, like all collaboratives, all tweakers, all fluids, everybody has a great time, but the ideas are okay at best. Then you put the teams together in diverse teams where you've got a whole range of types of innovators together. And at first it's uncomfortable. At first there's a lot of friction. But when we understand how to tap the power of that friction, the innovation that comes out of it is so incredible. And I think the other thing that comes out of that is people understand where they shine, how they contribute, how they shine, which, let's face it, your team wants that, right? You want that. It feels really good to say, wow, I contribute in this way and it's really powerful. And they understand how to bring out the best in others and how to leverage each other together. It's so powerful. Okay, wait, let me keep reading here. So this is so helpful for me to share with a sibling who creates constant friction to processes that we work on together. He's very creative, but refuses to see it how what he does is counter. Right. Right. So understanding yourself and those around you, it's so powerful. And here's, by the way, I want to say, it is not an excuse to cause friction where it's unnecessary. And one of the things that I shared with, I don't know if Michelle is on here, but she's one of our members in the tribe. She and I were talking about her results and about the inquisitive side. And I said, one piece of advice I always give to inquisitives is preface that, like, hey, I just want you to know, Sarah, I'm not trying to poke the bear. I'm not trying to question your judgment. I innovate by asking questions. That's how my brain gets turning. So I just want to ask a couple questions so that you understand that. So understanding, by the way, I was kind of referencing this to other people, but understanding how you cause friction personally helps you. I now know that because of how I innovate, I just need to make sure to show people that I'm not being impulsive, to really explain my thinking in a way that brings back the logical. And believe me, that's worked for me, right? I am not the best at A to B to C to D, as you can probably imagine. So I got to really make sure that I'm thinking about that as well. I don't try to remove friction. I think friction is a powerful force for innovation, but I want to make sure that we understand how we do it and then how we can bring out the best of others and how we leverage that thing that we call friction. Okay. Great way to self-analysis. Yeah, analysis. Yeah, and even if you don't take the assessment, by the way, obviously, I think everybody should because it tells you so much about yourself. But even if you didn't, you could look at that and know which one is you. Okay, wait. Say, Donna says this current time is giving me so much energy as I love learning and doing at the same time. Oh, good. Yeah, isn't that? Yeah, right. Isn't that interesting? Like there are some really positives that come out of it. Getting uncomfortable is all right. Yeah, Carolyn. You know what? I'm totally with you. Yeah. Mia says experiential. I do think sometimes people see me as moving way too fast, and I need to be mindful. Yes, because some people may have insecurities and feel left behind. Yeah, Mia. So I'm also experiential. So I see that all the time for myself. I'm actually glad you said that. People do feel left behind because I'm 10 steps ahead of them in action. And when I explain to them, look, I'm just innovating and trying to this is how I innovate and figure it out. It puts them a little bit at ease. So I'm not committing the train to this railroad track. I just want to see if this railroad track works for us. But it doesn't help me understand how people respond to you, Mia, in that way. Like, oh, now I know why my team is pushing back on me. Now I know why they want me to slow my roll. Now I know why the client is a little hesitant to say yes, right? It helps us understand how other people receive us as well. Oh, Donna said she agreed with you, man. Said I heard that 5 times yesterday. Too fast, too much work. Hard to not understand the new process or way of doing events. Yeah. Isn't that fascinating? So I hope that, let me know what about this document really resonated with you. I hope that like just even having this conversation about the fact that we add value, but we also cause friction and how to turn that friction to something that actually fosters even more innovation, that allows us to understand how people receive ourselves, that allows us to really dig into how to tap that power of diversity of thinking to take that friction and turn it into something like Morty and his team did into our competitive advantage. All right, I'm going to stop talking and just read the chat bar because that's actually my favorite thing to do. Let me know, what if this kind of worked, resonate with you? What are you going to do? Maybe experiment, everyday innovators in the tribe. What are you going to do differently, or what are you going to think about differently given what we talked about? Write it down. And while you're saying that, you know, let me just tell you while you're writing that the feedback I get from clients that have used this, from tribe members that have used this, what they'll tell me is that they really didn't realize how much of that underlying friction they were allowing to get in the way of their collaboration and respect and trust of each other and in the room to be vulnerable. Because if you don't understand each other's differences and don't really value them, it's hard to create a space that allows for trust and vulnerability and respect. And those are the bedrock of innovation. You can't have innovation without having those. And that one-page document really helps people see, oh, I can value Carolyn's way of doing things now, not seeing it as something that pushes against me, but use that tension as a strength to move us both forward. Mia says, I now see the pain of friction can birth into beautiful babies of new understanding and different styles. Exactly. Thank you, Mia. I think you said it so well that I don't even have like a follow up to that. We all know I'm rarely speechless, but that was really good. I really like that. Yeah, friction is a wonderful thing. Um, what was that? There was a great quote that I read the other day that was something like, "Without friction, man has no, or woman has no understanding of what he's truly capable of." And I thought that was really beautiful. And I think the same applies for the teams that we lead, the clients that we serve, the leadership that we report to. We've got to see their difference as valuable and as leverageable. And I will tell you, the the side benefit of all this is people feel more recognized and valued when you don't just focus on all things we have in common, but also how valuable what they bring to the table is, how valuable their uniqueness is. Oh, Kirby, good. You have framed this to make it actionable. You know, I love action. I don't like to keep things in theory. Could be the experiential side of me, actually. Innovation can just be so subjective and fluffy, and it actually drives me nuts because here's my little soapbox on this. There's a lot of innovation experts out there who are very brilliant people, but they make innovation complicated and subjective and this big ethereal thing. And I think we've proven this, right, group? That we don't have. It doesn't have to be. It's actually very accessible to all of us. It's tangible. It's real. It shouldn't be complicated. We should uncomplicate. I feel like it's this tangled web that if we just uncomplicate, just goes, oh, innovation is amazing, right? So what do we say? I find innovating is invigorating. The more you practice, the more energy. Yes. Um, Paul said, agree, Kirby. I feel like a copy for the wall. My calendar said until it's fully imprinted on my brain. Exactly. So I want you to listen to this week's podcast because I talk about it just released yesterday. Time management isn't task management. I talk about it's actually priority and innovation management. And I referenced my favorite book that actually really blew my mind around this. But I mentioned this because Mia, you talked about innovating is invigorating. Um, Innovating allows you to work smarter, not harder. Prioritization allows you to work smarter, not harder. Task management doesn't. And I think the trap that a lot of people fall into is they see innovation in particular as something as a nice to have and as something you get to do when you have the luxury of time. But the reality is, if your starting point is innovation, thinking differently about what's right in front of you to create an advantage, then you actually work smarter and you save yourself time on the back end. And that is the secret sauce of time management right there. And a priority nugget that I'm not going to say because I want you to listen to the podcast. And it's not my nugget. I'm actually sharing the wisdom of a book that really, like I said, profoundly changed how I prioritize things. And both of those two things have saved me more time and energy than anything else. And to your point, innovating is invigorating. So interestingly, Mia, there's been studies on this, by the way, that show that we as humans, we actually release feel-good chemicals when we innovate. So for example, when you're at home and the door has come off your fridge and you figure out an innovative way to jigger it back on, how proud of ourselves do we feel? We feel great, right? And that kind of gets us to like, what else can I solve today? That action of creative problem solving and critical thinking of innovating actually releases feel good chemicals in our brain. There's a reason for it. And there's a reason why it's so invigorating. And most of us do ourselves a real disservice by not tapping into that and thinking that it's something that we get to later. Oh man, I'm glad you listened to it. Oh yeah, the book is so good, right? So his one question is brilliant. I'll leave it there for the rest of the team. Go. It's on our website. It's on iTunes. It's on Stitcher. You can find it anyway. Yeah, Paul, it's our inner MacGyver. I mean, maybe that's why I like the show because it made me think like I could do that with duct tape and a paperclip, right? Just to age myself. Loved MacGyver. Him and his golden mullet. All right, everybody. Thank you for being here. Let me know anything else that you got out of this session today that I need to know about. I'll stay on for a few minutes just to kind of let us close out. But I so appreciate all of you and being here. We covered a lot. I kind of went on a few tangents, but I hope that all of those were helpful to you and it wasn't kind of too all over the place. Yeah, Mia, what a powerful week, right? I mean, we had the innovation lesson come out in the tribe. We did our pop-up live session earlier to just now, earlier, and then we did this. I know. I agree, Mia. And thank you for being here. The more engagement, the more conversation we have, the more powerful I think we can make the tribe for all of us, because then I know what we need to hone in on, where we need to spend more time. So I think hopefully, I think what makes it so powerful is your all engagement. So, and for those of you who are not in the tribe, I apologize. You're going to have to join us when we reopen it in September, because we do all of it. Yeah, Sarah, I'm so thankful for the tribe and for you all. So, I mean, we're small and mighty is what we are. It's incredible. So yeah, Donna, go tribe, right? I love that you guys are on here too. So good. Okay, I'm gonna shut it down. Thank you all for being here. I'll see you next week.